my god, like, and her going like, oh my god, fucking monster dick, like, oh my god, I can't. Hey everyone, welcome to BYOB, the Bring Your Own Book podcast. I'm Kelly.
I'm Tilly.
And I'm Nikki.
This week, we've got a fun little BYOB shot episode about the alien romance novel Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon, which was published in 2015, but has now expanded into a series of not 1, not 2, not 10, but 20 books. 20 books. Just a quick heads up that this book contains sexually explicit scenes, so we will probably be talking about that. Here's the publisher's synopsis from Tilly.
You'd think being abducted by aliens would be the worst thing that could happen to me. And you'd be wrong. Because now the aliens are having ship trouble and they've left their cargo of human women, including me, on an ice planet. And the only native inhabitant I've met, he's big, horned, blue, and really has a thing for me.
Thank you. That's literally all it says.
Yep.
And that's all you really need to know, listeners.
But we're going to elaborate.
Nikki. Yes, we are. We are sure going to try. So, Nikki, why don't you tell us about what we're drinking?
So, as the name of the episode suggests, we are all drinking shots. Now, we are not with each other today, so why don't we all tell everybody what shot we're drinking? I, myself, am going for a classic vodka. Just straight and to the point.
Oh my god. Well, okay, all I had left in the house was triple sec. So, I'm going to be finishing the little bit of triple sec I have. Some nice orange liqueur, if you will. What about you, Tilly?
I'm drinking some gin. You know me, I'm a gin gal, so I had a little bit, and I'm just going to tip it right back.
Perfect for a cold, blistery?
Ew.
Blustery day with a horned
Horned, rigid man.
if you will.
Yeah, rigid, really. Rigid.
Full of
Ridged,
ridges.
I guess.
Are you sure it's horned and not,
Horned? Oh.
horny?
I think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Shot.
Yeah.
We're already going. All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Not
the
great.
goods.
Oh my god. I don't even know
for
how
this-
you're doing vodka.
I feel like
It's not great, but it kind of matches this book. So
that's what I was going to say, is like something about this book makes me really kind of need the shot in a way that I haven't in other episodes.
right? It needs to par for the course, honestly.
All right, everybody. Since this is a mini episode, we're going to be launching right into spoilers and all our feelings about this book. So if you haven't read the book, if you're like part of the 1% population, I feel like online who have not read this book, don't feel bad. You can turn us off, check it out, and come back. Or you can just stick around and listen in on all the fun that we had. So, okay. If you don't want any spoilers, you should leave now. All right, so let's get into it. I'm really curious to know what you both felt about this, because this was actually my second time reading it, because I read it in August thinking that we were going to record in the summer and then just release it later in the year. That was my bad. It was a quick read. Yeah, my bad. But so I reread it, and I've read it twice, and I feel about the same both times. So for me, I guess I'll start it off. I gave it a 2 out of 5, and that's a generous 2, I feel like, because I gave it a 2 because it's not the worst thing I've read, but I really was not into it. And it's not because it's like very bizarre, but I'm just like, I did not care for the plot. I gotta say, I really did not care. It was a slog at times, and it's so short. I just found myself being like, okay, You've crash landed. Oh, okay. There's an alien. He's blue. He wants to have sex with you. Okay, now what? That's like the whole book, you know?
Yeah. I listened to the first part maybe 3 times before. So I did the audiobook for this completely. I did not read it like words on a page at all. And I don't know, maybe it helped my experience because it was hilarious.
Yeah.
To listen to people read this shit. And so I listened to it in one day at work while I was doing things that didn't require a lot of brain power. So people were walking around me and I was listening to this horrible piece of literature for many reasons. I would call it that. But so I had to listen to the first part like 3 times before I understood what exactly was happening because I kept zoning out. But then as soon as it went to Vectal's point of view, so it was narrated by a woman and a man. So a woman read Georgie's parts and a man read Vectal's parts. And as soon as he started reading, I was like, oh my God, what the fuck? And I just like, I listened intently the whole rest of the time because I was just like, this is crazy and so weird. So freaking weird. But I couldn't even give it a rating because I don't even know how to formulate what my mind even thinks about this. It was great and it was awful simultaneously.
Well, I feel I feel pretty similarly. But okay, so here's the thing. Is this a good book? No. It's not. It's not a good book. It's not even close to being a good book. But for what it is, which is unabashedly smutty and weird, I actually thought it was kind of fun. Yeah. So I had a better time reading it than I was expecting. I read it in one sitting. Maybe I was just like in the correct frame of mind to appreciate some weird paranormal alien thing. But I actually thought the writing was like not great, but not bad.
Yeah.
Especially when it came to the plot. The dialogue was awful. Yeah. All of the dialogue was so cringy. The narration, the dialogue, super unbelievable, super silly. Yeah. But then I started I like sunk into this place where I could appreciate it for what it was. So I was like, even though it was very stupid and the whole concept is stupid, I still kind of enjoyed it and laughed out loud a lot because the situations were so ridiculous. And I kind of feel like Ruby Dixon meant for it to be that way. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it wasn't taking itself too seriously. Yeah. It was, I think it's kind of meant to be very silly. Mm-hmm. So I can see why it's popular. I see why there's 20 books. I don't know if I would read more. I found the beginning really awful and really dark and like gritty and like gross.
And, like, why?
A lot of really a lot of visceral body things that were like really gross. I kept highlighting sections in my Kobo being like, okay, this is gross. When does it get sexy? Like, what am I reading? But I found once they kind of crash landed on the planet and it became like a survival romance, I was like, oh, I'm more interested in this.
Oh yeah.
Because the pacing felt better and I understood the book. And I also really hated the dialogue between all the girls on the ship and also all their names. It was like Peg and Chrissy and Liz. And I was like, who is naming these people?
But also, we only ever found out like maybe 4 of their names. There's like 12 of them.
I know.
Like the 4 over there.
What are any of their defining features?
Like, who are the 4?
And isn't there actually like 20 of them? And that's probably why there's 20 books, because every book is probably
I think it is.
a new one of them getting paired up with one of the what is Vectal's people called? The
I don't know how to say. You listen to the
Saqui? Something like
that? No, the Qui is the
but they're the
Saqui that attaches.
Like I think they're the Saq people that then got the Qui, so they became the Saqui. I think.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think you're right, because I have it right here.
I think the only other book I don't think I'd read any of them, but if there was another book I would listen to in the series, it would be Liz and whoever she gets with, because at the end of this book, she was already getting down with that guy. So it's like, great. Right at the beginning, we don't have to fool around with your stupid, like, pretend plot. We can just get to the real reason why we're here. But I think this also showed me, because I don't read, well, this is my first alien romance book.
Yeah, same.
I think that aliens just aren't for me.
That's fair.
I'm a really big vampire werewolf kind of girl, so I think aliens just aren't my thing, which is fine. But I guess it's good that we chose a short book for me to figure that out.
Yeah. Like, I'll say, okay, so I read this in August, and then at some point later, I read another book where the love interest was an alien, but he was like a humanoid kind of alien.
Oh, yeah.
And that book was just not very good, and I was so disappointed because it was Jennifer L. Armentrout, and it was her Obsidian book, which is all over Instagram. And I was like, let me give it a go. It was awful. I gave it a 1 star. It was so bad. It was like a YA paranormal romance. It was so bad. But like, this to me, the steamy bits, there were parts where I was like, oh, okay, interesting. But a lot of it, I was just kind of like, this is bizarre, like kind of laughing and like, okay, you know, along for the ride, literally, I guess, you know? But like, for me, I'm not into this kind of relationship, I guess.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, Nikki, because for me, the way it was written was like he's an animal, and I don't like that, where it's like, she kept calling him a barbarian because, you know, he, like, the technology was way back from Earth and all this stuff, and like he has a tail and like all this stuff, like I don't know, so she like saw him as an animal kind of, but not.
Yeah, it did feel like Neanderthal kind of like prehistoric weirdness, and it did kind of come off like she felt like he was
like a beast,
not
and that
a
was
person.
gross. Yeah, because to me, I don't care if it's like caveman. Well, I mean, I haven't read a caveman book, so actually I don't know about that. But like, if it was another or she treated Vectel like a person, like if Ruby Dixon had written him more like a person and not like a creature animal thing, maybe I could have been more on board. But I was like, this is just a little icky for me at times.
Yeah.
And I really, on that note, I really did not enjoy listening to his inner dialogue because it was like,
so boring.
Oh, let me get my mate. She wants fire. It's like, oh my God, can we, like, I'm pretty sure he's not dumb. Just because he doesn't have the technology, he's not dumb. Why are you writing him like, oh, I don't know how to use words. Like, oh my God, it was just so frustrating.
Yeah. It definitely was, well, at least I found that was a lot easier to listen to. I think if I was reading it, I would have been like, ugh, like this sucks. Like it's hard to read stuff like that. But listening to it and having somebody kind of like act it out, I didn't find that was too big of an issue. But I don't even know how to say this. They
Just
both were like so dumb. Like, not like, well, them, but just I just can't get over the fact that somebody, well, I know that it's not like there for the plot, but that somebody read this plot to go along with this like romance thing, and they were like, yeah, great, and just signed off on like the whole reason this book is happening. Because I'm like, I think
the whole concept,
like 20 minutes of brainstorming, they could have come up with something like a little better. Just a little, maybe would have enhanced the experience a bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how old Ruby Dixon was when she wrote it, because it felt very, like you were saying, like very simplistic, very, everything is exactly as it's written. There's no subtext. And it did feel kind of more fiction than an actual book. And I mean, there's a lot of like fun sci-fi elements that I enjoyed. And I thought that the whole like the whole Qui thing about like this parasite is, you know, latched on to the aliens, and that helps them. It's like a relationship that helps, the symbiotic relationship. I thought that was cool and kind of made it a good excuse for the way they like instantly fell in love. I thought it was kind of like a new take on, oh, I fell in love with her because she's hot. So for him, it was like, you know, my queen vibrated, which is still stupid, obviously. Like, we have to operate on the base assumption that this is not good literature. But, you know, I thought that was kind of fun.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I was going to say, like, I highlighted a part near the end where she learns about you have to ingest this parasite in order to survive the environment here, because there's like a gas in the air or something that's not on Earth, and so if you're not from here, you'll die without it. I thought that part was interesting. I would have been more interested to be like, okay, let's figure this out, whatever. But I didn't like the whole friggin' book. He kept saying, "Oh, she doesn't have a queen. Does she have a queen?
Like, let it go.
We get her a queen? I'm purring for her." But it's like, oh, I highlighted a part. I was like, for God's sake, we already know she doesn't have a queen. You already know this. Why are you asking yourself again, Vectal? You know, like.
Oh my God! When I got home that night after listening to this book, my cat came and he sat on me and he was purring, and I was like, "Get away from me, you nasty bitch." It was fine, but I was just like, I was like too engrossed in this like nasty world. It was just too much. There were too many things that I was like cringing about. But yeah, I don't know. There's not a lot I can say about this book other than like, what a ride. What like in so many ways. But on that note, the physical riding in the book, it was really like vanilla and lame.
Yeah.
I was like, I thought this was like marketed as like erotica, and I was like, this is like, is the erotic part supposed to be because he's an alien?
I think so.
Because that was not enough.
Because his appendage is, you know, got different things happening, I guess.
Ew, I hate that.
They sell, oh my God, they sell sex toys that are inspired by these books.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I was doing research for the outline. I was just reading up for the episode. Okay. I was not trying to find it myself. Let me be clear. It popped up as a Google search when I was trying to search for the characters' names. And it's blue. It's ridged. It's got the extra, you know, like knob bit, which, let me say, I really laughed about that. I was like, could this be any more of a straight woman designing her own penis?
Well, she says in the book it looks like that rabbit vibrator. I'm like, are you I've seen Sex in the City. There's a whole episode on that vibrator. I guess it was a big deal when it came out in the past. Like, I don't know. I was a child
back in the 90s.
Yeah, I was a child, so I would not have known about this. But like, that's just bizarre to be like, okay, well, that's, one thing that annoyed me. It's like, we're in this other world where she's abducted by aliens and taken to this not Hoth planet. I understand she's from Earth, but like bringing real references in really annoyed me in a way, because it's like, okay, I'm suspending disbelief for you to get it on with this blue man who I just kept imagining Avatar, but in the snow. And I was like, I don't like Avatar.
You know what I was picturing? What? This is not hot at all, and this is probably a huge part of the reason why I had a hard time connecting with this book.
Tell us.
I'm scared.
I don't even want to say it out loud.
You have to.
In Hercules, the Minotaur that's like fighting with Meg, and he's blue and he has like no hair on the top of his head, but he has really long, like greasy hair. But obviously without like the horse ass. But that's what I was picturing.
But Kay, also in the book, he called his teeth his tusks, or she called them tusks, and I was like, tusks?
Oh my God.
What do you mean he's got tusks? Like, what?
It's like, how do you kiss with that? How do you?
He calls it mating with your mouth. Yeah.
Well, and he never had before.
Can you
with
believe
your
that?
mouth?
Yeah.
That sounds like something like a teenage boy would say about like getting a blowjob or something.
Ew.
I hate
I'm
that.
not wrong.
Is this episode okay? Like,
Yes.
are people gonna enjoy listening to this?
Well, they can.
I feel like we're all just like, fuck this.
They can skip ahead to just not listen because the whole book is about this. So
That's true.
But okay,
I know.
this is the thing, because you were saying, Nikki, like, or no, Tilly, you were saying this is like, or I guess you both were saying this is like fan fiction, but the plot was a little iffier and it was very simple. But for me, we all know that this is, you know, they always joke it's alien porn, right?
Yeah.
But there was not a lot of the porn part, I guess, if you will.
yeah, that's why I was
some.
confused.
Yeah, there was some, but it was a lot of like, I'm in the snow. I gotta get to the girls. She doesn't have a quee. We gotta get her a quee. My
Cook the
residence,
meat.
my quee. Yeah. No, cook it, not raw, right? Like all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, I think, that there was too much bad plot and not enough like sex to balance each other out. Like the plot needed to be better because there was like not a lot of like intimate moments portrayed, and they were like really vanilla. Like the most it got was like he bent her over a rock or something, and I was like, oh, is that like your erotic fantasy? Like snooze. But
apologies to anyone who does fantasize about the rock stuff.
yeah, that's fine. But like,
yeah, we're not shaming you.
I was just expecting more.
Yeah.
It was a little. And what was there was very silly. The circumstances surrounding it.
Yeah.
Like, she was literally on her, like, crash landed on this new planet, trying to rescue her friends, a bunch of whom were injured and starving. And this alien wakes her up with his face between her legs. And she's just like, well, I guess I can spend a little time dealing with this. And the whole like, I understand there's a language barrier. So, you know, sure, she can't communicate what she actually needs, which is to go rescue her people. But so much of it is just her not being stressed out enough about the circumstances she's in.
Also, if I had to keep reading her gobbledygook but English through Vectel's perspective, I was going to lose it. Like, I couldn't. And like the slurred stuff, like I couldn't take it, because for me, I'm sorry, but if I was going to write this book, if I were to write a book like this, sorry, I would have just had him hear the words, write them down in English, and not understand what the hell she's saying, because you already have his dialogue, you know? Like, I don't need to have the shorshi, like, and her going like, oh my god, fucking monster dick. Like, oh my god, I can't. That was a literal line.
Yeah, it was awful. I really feel that
fucking monster dick.
that this book didn't need a dual perspective. That's what I think.
No.
I think we just could have been okay with Georgie, even though she was insufferable.
Agreed.
And, you know, after a while, I started thinking that she was kind of funny, even though she felt like every early 2000s reality TV star in the way she talked, which was annoying, but what kind of familiar. And I think we didn't need to hear about Vectel's thoughts. We could have figured it out other ways.
Yeah, it's like she took Tarzan, but tried to make it an alien romance without the whole, like, poaching and all that. I would much rather watch Tarzan, okay? Because you have the language barrier, you have the culture barrier, you have the, you know, like, she's from an industrialized country versus, like, he was raised by animals in the jungle, you know? Like, clearly this is not the same as Tarzan, but, like, we could have had the language barrier and all this other stuff done in that way in this book, you know? Which they kind of did. But it was just like, I can't keep reading this gobbledygook and the slurring and just, yeah, there was a lot of repetition when there did not need to be. That's why I was like, there's not a lot of plot, and why is this such a slog at times? I wish she would have just upped the camp, honestly, because we already know this is crazy. Yeah.
Also, I know that we're probably going to get to, like, some I'm going to say favorite parts loosely at the end, but mine specifically goes with that point of the kind of slurred speech and the trying to understand each
Please
other.
tell us.
So, because I was listening to it, I got to hear this man interpret how he thinks that Vectol is saying all
give
this
the
stuff.
man an award.
And when it got to the part when he was trying to say her name, I was like, this really reminds me of Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise in the It remake. And I was like, why is that? And then I realized like a few days after, it's because the boy's name in It that he kills at the beginning is Georgie. So
Whoa.
He's saying,
spoilers,
like the guy who's reading for Vectol, he's like trying to say the name Georgie, but it sounds like Bill Skarsgård going like, Georgie? And I was like, why is this so fucking weird? Anyway, that is my favorite part of the whole thing. Just having that whole listening experience.
God, I would love to hear that.
I was really reminded a lot while reading, and maybe this is why I kind of enjoyed it more, was because I was reminded a lot of Stargate, which is this nerdy sci-fi TV show that my partner and I have watched every season of, because one of the main kind of like villain races in Stargate SG-1 are called the Goa'uld, which they're like symbiotic parasite relationships with humans, where the symbiote, the Goa'uld, is like a little serpenty thing that like lives in their stomach and like heals them and makes them live longer. And so very similar to in this book, the Kui. So I wonder if there was like some inspiration taken there. But I have like very warm, fuzzy feelings about Stargate. And there's a lot of like really interesting things that happen with that Goa'uld throughout the whole series. So I was like really interested in that and kind of like nostalgic about watching Stargate and feeling nice about it. So maybe that's why, I mean, this is really the sort of book where it's not really very much on its own. So we are kind of projecting all these other things onto it. And I think that like influences our reading experience for sure.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I haven't seen any Stargate, but that sounds really awesome.
Yeah.
I like that name too, Goa'uld.
I don't like read or watch a lot of sci-fi that has to do with like Earth and other galaxies. Like a lot of the sci-fi that I take in is like this galaxy far, far away and everything's just happening there and Earth like doesn't exist. So reading this, the only thing I had to relate it to is Across the Universe, which is a book that Tilly lent me. Okay. And I was like, I loved that book. I loved
it was great.
The whole trilogy. But I was just like, I feel kind of bad that I'm relating it to this other book, because the other one, well, it's a YA book, but I think it was like very well written. The story was very compelling, but because there was just nothing else, I just kept going back to that in my mind. And I'm like, no, it's not, you're not in the same vein. Get out of here.
I thought you meant the Beatles movie, and I was like, what?
No.
Like, okay.
No.
I don't see the connection there. Just put a stop right there.
Oh, man.
I do want to say, like, there were some pretty funny lines in this book. Like,
there really were.
I highlighted one in part 2 of the book that he was like, sorry everyone, we're getting into explicit territory here. He's like, burying my face between her legs was one of the truest pleasures I have ever felt, and I want to feel it again. I was like, okay. And I wrote, my note was, yeah, it's a privilege, son, in capitals. I'm just like, what is this? You know, like, I agree with you, Tilly. I think we did not need his point of view. I think it was too much. And I understand a lot of people like doing the dual perspectives with romance. But for me, a lot of the times I don't, because I want the mystery. I don't want to know everything all the time. It really depends for me. So this was, I don't know. I think it would have been stronger without him because it was a little bizarre. So
yeah,
just saying.
when I was doing some research just before we were recording, I was reading a lot of people talking about the book, which is very funny to see other people talking about it. And especially like people tweeting about like people being like, oh, you read books? What do you read? And like me hiding the 15th Planet Barbarians book and being like, nothing, don't worry about it. And I feel like people do enjoy this for the plot going forward. So maybe there is like some kind of overarching plot. And because this is just the first book, we're just getting like the barest amount of atmospheric setup, and that maybe it gets like really compelling and really interesting later. I'm not sure. I'd almost be interested in reading more, but not quite.
Yeah, I feel that because, I mean, there's definitely some little hints of like, that could be interesting or fun to read, but I don't think I could read 20 of these.
No.
Like, I just don't think so at all. It says Babysitter's Club? I couldn't even read that. That's too much. That's too
Wow.
much.
You could not have picked two more different series.
I think they're probably good to read. Like, they're kind of like one sitting books,
Yeah.
unless the other books get a lot longer. But I could definitely see like picking this up, the next ones up, if I was just like in a reading slump or something and wanted something fun or didn't know what else to read and it was on Libby or something. Like,
Yeah, totally.
to just be like, okay, great. Like it's a good way to like, or not a good way, maybe a fun way to blow a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Tilly's giving me a look.
I feel kind of the same way, Nikki, where it's like a fun way to just kind of like spend a day. I kind of feel the same way about Gina Showalter's books, the Lords of the Underworld, which starts with the Darkest Night. This is actually, I found very similar in like the tone, the very like self-aware, very silly, very paranormal. There's like a group of men who all have like something deep and dark within them, and they all have to find like their one woman who completes them, and they're so like, they're dumb, but like kind of addictive in a way.
That sounds like more up my alley.
Yeah, you'd probably like them.
I really want to read that because I know you've mentioned it a few times, and I'm trying to get it when it's on sale for my Kobo, because right now it's like $12. I'm like, for an ebook?
They have it at the library, I'm pretty sure.
What?
Check on Libby. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I read them all in the library.
Okay, I'll look after because I really want to read that.
Yeah. But it's very similar kind of style. This genre of book I find has like, it's like this, but aliens, or it's like this, but, you know, like Lords of Darkness, and they're all kind of the same. And so, yeah, for what it is, it was kind of fun. I could maybe read more.
Anyone else have any pressing thoughts before we get into our favorite parts?
No, I think I've expelled all of my my feelings.
You're just on it today, Nikki. You've got
right?
all the puns. You're just on it. That's my contribution.
Yeah, great.
I think I've said all the things I want to say.
Okay.
I mean, definitely we're not trying to offend anyone who really loves these books. If you love them, good for you. I had a fun time reading. It's only kind of in retrospect that I'm thinking back on all the things that I didn't like, and I'm like, maybe that was problematic, but here we are.
I think that's what it's like for a lot of the books we read, not just the ones that are like this. It's really hard to sit down to do an episode like this and not start to nitpick at things.
Totally.
I mean, even books where we're like, we gave it a 5 out of 5, and we'll still sit there and be like, but I didn't like this and this and this and this. But those things don't really matter in the end.
Yeah.
What matters
they
is
might matter
the
more
journey.
for this book. But
yeah,
the journey was
it was a journey.
plentiful. So
I'm glad we read this because, you know, even though it was not my favorite, I didn't hate myself while reading it. Like,
That's
I did
good.
Enjoy. Well, like, I'm going to bring it up again because that's all I can think about whenever I think about a book I hated. I really didn't like Children of Blood and Bone.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Throne of Glass. That's the other one.
Was that... Oh. No, that one was... I didn't enjoy that, but I got to the end and I was like, I'm kind of curious, but not enough to keep reading, which is how I felt about this one. Because, like, I did enjoy my time reading it, but not enough to be like, yeah, let's read more. Or, like, everyone needs to read this.
Mm-hmm.
But I had fun. I'm glad that we read it together. We could talk about it. Because it's so
I'm glad that we all had similar experiences.
Yeah.
It would have been really awkward if one of us was like, you know what I loved? That alien dick.
Yep. I think it definitely would have been a little weirder than when we usually disagree in these episodes.
Yeah. I do have one quote that I highlighted because it made me laugh so much. So if anyone else has a part they want to read, please feel free.
I don't even know. Most of the parts I highlighted, I just was like, ew.
Yeah, and I already said mine.
Okay, well, great. So I guess I will finish us off,
Ew,
if you
Kelly.
will, with this quote.
I like it.
I think this sums up the book, honestly, because this made me laugh, and it was so ridiculous, and it was completely on brand. So this is in Georgie's perspective, and she says, "It wasn't a monster come to eat me. It was this monster who's come to eat me out." And scene.
Truly, that should be the tagline of the whole book.
Seriously, though, I laughed so hard because, like, how ridiculous is that sentence? But I mean, let's go with it. Like, I wanted more camp. That's what I wanted. But what a star, Ruby. What a star. You keep doing you. Get it, girl. Right onto the bank. Okay.
That's exactly what she's doing.
Yes. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the BYOB podcast. If you enjoyed this and want to hear more from us, you can head over to our social media accounts to keep up to date on all things BYOB. We've got Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, the works. And if you love our podcast, we would really appreciate if you would leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Stay tuned after this to hear the first line of our next read, the popular 2012 YA fantasy novel, Cinder by Marissa Meyer. See you next time, and until then, keep on drinking in great stories. Cheers!
Next time on BYOB, the Bring Your Own Book podcast. The screw through Cinder's ankle had rusted, the engraved cross marks worn to a mangled circle.